Alright, what is up, homies and homettes? This is PDFTCG, and today we're going to be taking a look at gadgets. There's about 100 different ways that you can play this deck, and this is going to go over a lot of the cards that I've experimented with in different kind of areas that you can take this deck. So the core of the deck is going to be 3 of each little Ozo. It's kind of, it is the deck. This is the reason that we have the other cards that are in the deck. We have 2 Galactibo and 2 double-sided spear here. These you'll run 2 to 4 of total. These are somewhat interchangeable. Double-sided spear allows you to trade into anything, and Galactibo allows you to trade into a decent number of things. But you'll have your creature at the end of it, so pluses and minuses here. 2 Nightmare Matter. It's just more removal. You can side these out against more control-y decks if you're playing against Gazerks or Ozo or something where you feel like they're more meaningful creatures aren't going to swing into. You might consider siding these out. 2 KOs, they're just better double-sided spears and Galactibos. And then 2 double wormholes. Double wormhole is interesting in this deck because generally when you play double wormhole, the issue with it is that it's a -1 that you're not going to play until probably, halfway through the game at least. And then after you play it, you're going to wait a while before you get the card that you double wormholed. It's a very slow card. However, in this deck, it allows you to just keep the chain of Ozos going longer. So it's this weird thing where in like a couple of turns, these double wormholes actually represent a +1 instead of a -1. Galaxy Crash, Phantom Matter, Beast of the Black Hole. If you don't understand why these are in the deck, go play a game of Chaos Galaxy. This kills everything. This kills everything that's attacking. This gets you a big dumb idiot from your opponent's discard. There's not a lot else to say there. So outside of this core that we have right here, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can take this deck. You can go into Gaios. You can even play the Gaios Planet card. Naf is interesting because you can actually trigger its ability off of searching for Ozo Kai, off of Ozo Bam, and then have it come back. Ficadorus is pretty nice. If it swings and kills something, you get a +1. If you're planning on playing Ficadorus, I would probably run 2 Galactibos, because this actually being able to swing over something a little bit more meaningful makes it a little bit more consistent. Temple Traps, if you are going more Gaios heavy, you can run Temple Traps potentially in place of some of the Nightmare Matters. You might do like 2 Temple Traps, 1 Nightmare Matter. Rootaboot. Again, this is really only if you're going Gaios heavy. You can run, 2 Noth, 2 Rootaboot, maybe 2 Solomancer. And just use this. You might even be able to use this kind of in place of like the Galactibos and stuff. I don't know if I would suggest that. I haven't actually tried Rootaboot in any of my lists. Neither have I tried Solomancer or Galaxy Rock. Obviously, you're going to play... I guess you could probably run Solomancer along with De. But I feel like if you're running De, you probably want to be running the planet card Gaios. If you're running De, you probably want to be running the planet card Barrow. And if you're running Solomancer, you probably want to be running Gaios so that you can play Ozo Kai, search Ozo Bam, sack the Ozo Kai that you just played, search Solomancer, and then you can probably use your double wormholes to actually loop Solomancer rather than the gadgets, or maybe like use 1 and 1. This is more territory that I haven't really explored that much. The deck runs somewhat slowly. So a lot of the time you're looking to have more gas in your deck and in your hand than your opponent. And if you're playing Galaxy Rock, I feel like you probably want to run Universe Boundary. And due to that, you're going to be going -1 with the Universe Boundary, so that kind of takes away from the natural card advantage that you're building from the gadgets. And it also takes away some of your deck gas, but you could play a slightly more aggressive version with this. So I haven't explored this territory. It's a little bit weird to me. I think the deck would need to look a little bit different than the current list to make this work, but I think you probably could. Going on into hand control cards. So this also fits in here. There's a lot of stuff that kind of mixes and matches here. But going on into more hand control-y stuff, you do have Graviathrax, Firestorm Sorcery, Lava Mole, Rilla Hexdagger, and Warrius. So since you're already running Galactibo, it actually synergizes really well with Lava Mole and Warrius. If you're going more of this style, I would, again, probably run more Galactibo and less Double-Sided Spear. I hate to say it, I was really trying to make Rilla Hexdagger work. This deck naturally wants to trade 1-for-1 because you're generating a bunch of card advantage off of these. So trading 1-for-1 with your opponent is generally good with this deck. The issue with Rilla Hexdagger is that this list naturally somewhat invalidates several cards in your opponent's deck. So the nice thing about this is you have a lot of small creatures that you're using your activators and your attachments and stuff to trade up into your opponent's bigger creatures. One of the nice things about this deck is your opponent's KOs and stuff look stupid. Your opponent is going to hold KO in their hand for like the whole game waiting for you to play something meaningful, and it will never come. This Rilla Hexdagger just gets rid of their KO, and it like 95% of the time when you play Rilla Hexdagger, unless maybe it's like turn 1, your opponent goes, okay, I discard this KO that I've held in my hand for the past 14 turns, and you go, yeah, okay, this really didn't help me. Otherwise, I think this actually has uses. If you were playing like this list with Ozo in it, then maybe like your opponent's like, oh yeah, I'll get rid of my KO, I'm never going to use that, and then you drop an Ozo and they're like, well, this isn't ideal for me. Kaleidoscope Warrius is quite good. There's a decent number of decks right now that are running important attachment cards. I like to run this in as a one-of in a lot of my decks, because you'll hit a Phantom Matter, you'll hit an Ice Elixir, you'll hit, hopefully not a KO, as I've already said, but you've got Telecon's Helm, you've got, any OTK list is going to run like 15 attachment cards that they need to win the game, so hitting them with this is quite nice. Firestorm Sorcery. It's Rilla Hexdagger, but it doesn't suck. So the second part of this is irrelevant. You're really not ever going to use the second part of this. You might be able to put together something where Graviathrax brings back Lava Mole, but I wouldn't worry about trying to get the second part of this off. The good thing about this is that it trades 1-for-1 with a random card in your opponent's hand. Again, we're naturally generating card advantage. A lot of these games are going to go to whoever has more total gas in their deck. And just being able to pick off a single card in your opponent's hand, again, with there being some OTK decks floating around, there being Gazerk's Loop hitting one of their loop cards, hitting a piece of Gazerk's. There's a lot of good that can come from this. I generally run 2 of these, but it's not entirely necessary. Again, I just primarily like it because it allows you to trade 1-for-1, and this deck likes trading 1-for-1. So, Graviathrax, It was in my tournament list. I've kind of fallen out of love with this card in this deck due to a couple of reasons. One, all three of these resource cards are quite playable in this deck, and this has anti-synergy with all three of them. You're also not particularly great at actually getting in with Graviathrax due to you just, a lot of the time you don't have two creature zones. You kind of need to be able to attack with something and then attack with Graviathrax. It's really clunky a lot of the time. It just doesn't do anything. But it's still certainly playable. You're also just not really looking to play like flash portals and stuff like that would allow this to actually get in a direct attack. Lava Mole, it attacks through territory, it attacks through checkpoints, it hits activators, which is quite good, and we naturally have more options than normal that allow it to attack into larger creatures. So you can use it a little bit more often. Again, more Mole, more Galactibo, as a general rule, I'd say. Barrow cards. Adatrox. You could also throw Boominator in here, possibly. But again, anti-synergy if you're running Whirlpool Territory or Trollogram. Deck kills Pelfam. It's got 320 attack. It gets through checkpoint. It gets through Whirlpool Territory. It activates Trollogram. It's also, we talked earlier about invalidating KOs and Phantom Matters. This, if your opponent isn't playing Barrow, is just, it's not a relevant card. They don't want to Phantom Matter it. It's going to be sideways for the whole game anyway. They don't want to KO it. It just fits with the other themes going on. Similar thing with Adatrox. Adatrox does not work with Trollogram. Unfortunately, have confirmed with Zach that it does not work with Trollogram. These do not stack. But again, gets through Deep Space, gets through Whirlpool. Very good Barrow card. We have Orbov and Divine Doom here. So my current list runs 2 Orbov and 1 Divine Doom. Divine Doom can hit the Orbovs, it can hit the Kaleidoscope Warriors, and it can hit the Ozos. Just acts as another removal. Generally, you would prefer to play this when your opponent has 2 creatures on the field at least, obviously, but that doesn't always happen. But it can get an Orbov in the discard. And it, gets over large creatures, kills multiple creatures at once. Fairly solid. Deck really likes having more forms of removal, and this adds more removal. It also has trouble dealing with bursty plays. So this deck does fairly well against control decks, and it does okay against mid-range stuff. It struggles a little bit against decks that can hold like burst plays in their hand. So Sindel Tempo, for instance, you really don't want to get like Pelfammed into Bone Laddered swing for like 9. You just kind of want to slowly trade cards, and if they can just clear your board and swing in for 8 or 9 points, it's not good. We don't want that to happen. Orbov helps deal with that. Orbov is also really stupid with Trollogram because you get a total of 9 lives off of the thing. And it also is one of the things that you can do in response to an attack when your opponent has Bernard on the field. So, as I said, running 2 Orbovs in my current list. We'll go over my current list after this. But I do really like Orbov in this list. So we've got the 3 permanent resource cards down here, all of which work relatively well with the deck. Deep Space Checkpoint. Most or all of our stuff is going to be 4 stars or less. So we don't hit this. It plays again into the hand attack stuff. And just makes it really tricky for your opponent to play anything that your Ozos are going to have trouble trading into. Trollogram is what I run in the current list. It works with Ozo Block that's flipped, Ozo Kai naturally, Noph, which is also in the current list, De, not Aditrox, works with Orbov, works with Kaleidoscope Aureus. So it just hits a lot of the stuff that you're naturally like already pretty okay with running in this deck, and just makes it even better. So and then the last one, Whirlpool Territory, I threw this in there because I felt like a lot of people would see Deep Space Checkpoint and wonder why Whirlpool Territory isn't at least an option. I think it's probably playable. The reason that I don't like this is that we want to get rid of the cards. We're not stalling to like get an Ozo up and running, or stalling so that we can loop our Cerberam for another 14 times. Our win condition is you are out of stuff. A lot of the time, whether it be stuff in your hand or stuff in your deck, depending on what deck you're playing against. This helps with both of those. This doesn't. This just creates a problem that we'll have to deal with eventually somehow, and we may not have enough answers for that stuff. So as a general rule, I would prefer Checkpoint over Territory. You might be able to make this work. You might be able to run one of each or something as well. So Phantasmal Spoons. A lot of people will just put this over here, probably clone it, make a second copy, say you run spoons or you're stupid. The current list does run spoons, but the current list runs 2 Orbovs, 2 Nophs, and also wants to dig for Trollogram. If your list does not care about dumping stuff in the graveyard and isn't super interested or just doesn't run any of these, this doesn't do anything. This actually just actively hurts you. The fact that a lot of the time you're going to be playing for gas in deck makes this significantly worse. Particularly if you draw it towards the end of the game. But even if you draw it at the start of the game, this is going to put a card in your discard, and it is going to be one less deck slot. So it's one less, creature you could be running. It's one less Aditrox. The issue with that is, again, we're a lot of the time going for total gas in deck, and there's nothing to look for in this deck. But these all search for themselves. This stuff is fairly interchangeable, and these will usually show up before you need them. So there's just not a lot you're digging for with certain variations of this list. Again, current list is running Orbov and Noph, and is digging for this Trollogram. But I have definitely had lists where I realized that this card just doesn't do anything. In my tournament games against Shulk, I sideboarded this out because I realized that in that list, I just don't want this card. Just actually do not want this card in that list. Burning Damocloid, current list runs 2 of these. It is very good because the primary way that you're getting rid of resources in this format is what's the stupid kill a resource or attachment card? The way that you get rid of these is through a resource card, and this prevents that. One of the big issues with this deck is when you're running against control decks and they're looping. They are looping things that are more valuable than what you're looping. You shut that down. You're running against aggro decks. You're having issues with Time Flash Portal. You shut this down, this thing saves you like 9 points or something. This has very distinct uses against basically every deck that I've seen played, and as such I run 2 of them. If they're not running Time Flash Portal to smack you for 9, they're not looking to remove your permanent resource, and they're not looking to loop their Cerberam or Ozo for the 400th time, just hitting a Galaxy Crash with this it's just good enough. That's just fine. Again, it adds another way for us to trade 1-for-1, which we're a big fan of. AAA, I actually don't like AAA as much as Burning Damocloid in this deck. However, I think the current list runs 1. You can certainly run 2. You can certainly run 0. Getting beasted with this deck is just not that big of a deal a lot of the time. It does let you trade for 1-for-1, which you really like, and it also prevents stupid stuff like this KO your creature, you swing in, and they planetary field it. You don't want that to happen. That gets really ugly really quick. So I like to run 1, maybe 2. You can certainly run 0. Quadruple Wormhole, I just wanted to talk about. I have attempted to run this, and so far it hasn't worked. I think if you were going to run it, it would be in the Gaios list. Just like a very Gaios heavy. Just because with the current list, you just don't have 4 creatures in the discard until super late in the game. This just sits in your hand for absolutely ever. Because a lot of the time it's like you're trying to loop 2 Des and 2 Ozo. You gotta wait until you draw both Des. If you went like 2 Dead, 2 Atatrox, 2 Boominator or something, and you might be able to make this work. If you have like 2 Orbovs and 2 Kaleidoscope Warriors, you might be able to make this work. In general, it's been too clunky to actually resolve this thing at any meaningful time. It's very hard to keep the loop going with this. Last thing I'm going to talk about is Ozo, why we aren't playing Ozo. So I think a lot of people would look at this list and go, and we're slapping in 2 of these, because why would you not? Well, it's a little bit more complicated with that than that, because we are being a lot more active with this deck. We're looking to trade our creatures off. We're looking to constantly play them. We're just not holding a Gaios, a Barrow, and a Syndian card in our hand a lot of the time. And we already just have a ton of removal. We're generating card advantage through other ways. You could probably make it work, but it feels unnecessary with the way that the list works. That's pretty much everything that I have to say about the different variants that you could go that I've tested. There's, again, this right here is all you have to have. Everything else over here is pretty much optional. I'm sure there's 200 different things that you could do with this deck. I could see you playing like Nightmare with this deck. I think Nightmare would work, and just like running like a small night list with like Infi, and like running Nightmare and stuff. There's a lot you could do. But this is really all you have to run, and I'll go ahead and load up my current list now so that we can take a look at that. Because I know a lot of people were wanting like the exact list that I'm playing. So we will be right back. Immediately back for you guys, actually. Okay, guys. Time Warp PDF here, and we're going to be going over my current list now. As I stated, there's a lot of different ways to play this, and I've been tinkering around with it a lot. So I'm not necessarily sold on this being like the optimal list by any means, but this is what we currently have, and people have been asking for the list. So yeah, here you go. So we've got 2 of each Ozo, naturally. We are running 2 Trollograms, so we're also running Knopf, Orbov, and Kaleidoscope's Warriors to synergize with that. Since we're running Kaleidoscope Warriors and 2 Orbovs, we're also running a Divine Doom. We're running 2 double-sided Spear. I think I'm probably going to try and get at least 1 Galactibo in here. I think we're going to swap one of these for a Galactibo. We've got 2 KOs, because of course we do. We've got 2 Nightmare Matters, because of course we do. And we have 2 double wormholes because, as I explained, this effectively generates card advantage as well as creating more gas for your deck. Trolligam synergizes with every card in this deck except for Ozobam, which is conveniently also a card that we can discard with Divine Doom. Spoons is in here because we actually have discard targets in Knopf and Orbov, as well as potentially gadgets that we've doubled up on drawing. Although generally you want to send gadgets to the bottom, so normally this isn't going to be discarding a gadget, but sometimes you do. Phantom Matter, Galaxy Crash, Beast of the Black Hole, self-explanatory. And then we have 1 AAA and 2 Damocloids, as I've explained. These prevent your Trollograms from going away, they prevent your opponent from out-looping you, and they prevent you from getting hit for 9 on occasion from things like Sindel Tempo and random Blaze Elixir Starship extra small 1 stars, Phantom Matter plus Pelfam plays, all kinds of stuff that this prevents, or at least lets you keep your creature on the field, so that it doesn't get Galaxy Crashed, it doesn't get Time Flash Portaled, it doesn't get, I don't Charge Blaster. I've actually been playing some Charge Blaster in some of my decks. I think that card might be slightly underrated, but that's a whole nother video. And then I just like Firestorm Sorcery in my gadget decks in general. So I hope that this is everything that everyone's been looking for. This is the current list. As I said, I've been tinkering around with a lot of stuff, and there's a bunch of different variations that you could do with this deck. If you have any suggestions or ideas as far as, alternative paths that you could take with this, I would love to hear them in the comments. But I do believe that this video is like 30 minutes long at this point, so I am going to go ahead and cut it out now. I will be uploading a bunch of my tournament games from the last tournament as well as the upcoming tournament. So I played this in the last tournament, and there's a reasonable chance that I'm going to be playing this in the next one. So if you like this deck, then be sure to watch those. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and have a wonderful day.